Now, there's been a lot of debate around the world about ultra-processed foods, the consumer group which says they make up around 60% of our diets. So what exactly are they? Well, there's no settled definition, but generally they contain ingredients not used in home cooking. But that's a wide range, from ready meals and pot noodles to even sliced bread and oat milk. Well, some studies have suggested there's a link between ultra-processed food and poor health. Well, someone who's been sounding the alarm about ultra-processed food is Chris Van Tulleken, a doctor, scientist and journalist. And you've been arguing, haven't you, that they cause a whole range of problems for us. You've also written a book, which is being released in paperback, about ultra-processed food. Tell me a bit more about why you decided to look into it, because you're an infectious disease doctor. What is it about ultra-processed food that made you kind of sit up and take note?
So as a young doctor, I worked a lot in complex humanitarian emergencies in Pakistan and in Central Africa. And the kids that I saw die, mainly of diarrheal disease, died because they were being marketed baby food that their parents couldn't afford, they couldn't read the instructions, and they had no clean water to make it up. And so my research switched from looking at bugs and viruses to looking at what we call the commercial determinants of health. And that's what I work with the World Health Organization and UNICEF on, is how big companies affect health, particularly infant nutrition and adult nutrition. Talk
me through UPF. So everyone at home watching this, what is an ultra-processed food?
So you said in your beginning there, your excellent beginning, that there was no settled definition. There is a very, very settled definition of what an ultra-processed food is. It's housed on the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization website. It's been used in hundreds of excellent studies. It's agreed on by the governments of France, Israel, Belgium.
You can blame my producer.
No. This is a common misconception put about by the food industry that there isn't a settled definition. It boils down to, if you're reading an ingredients list and there's something on there that you don't normally find in a domestic kitchen, a stabilizer, an emulsifier, a flavoring, the product is almost certainly ultra-processed. And ultra-processed foods are distinct from processed foods. Humans have been processing food for millions of years. We have to process our food. We have to cook it and salt it and grind it and smoke it and ferment it in order to make up traditional diets that are associated with very good health. Ultra-processed food is industrially processed, and its purpose is to make profit, and it's very extractive. It's extractive from low-income communities in the UK and from low-income communities in the Global South and in low-income countries.
Is there a difference there then? Because in places like the Global South, are you less likely as a person with less income to eat ultra-processed food than you are, say, in the UK or in America?
So what we've seen in Latin America is this incredible nutrition transition, and it followed the North American Free Trade deal, where an American diet suddenly went into Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, and there was an explosion of diet-related disease. And so those are the countries that have started to get a handle on how to regulate this industry. In the UK, we are just so far behind. There is functionally no regulation of unhealthy food, however you define it, in this country.
Government scientists who've looked into this say that there are, in their words, observational studies only to go on, that this could be a question more of, correlation, but not necessarily causation. What's your argument against that?
So I have I'm at University College London, where you went, and I have excellent colleagues at Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. These are excellent studies. But more than that, we have very, very good experimental evidence, both about additives that are exclusively used in ultra-processed food and about the food itself. And I'm running a big randomized controlled trial at the moment at UCL. The evidence has far, far passed the threshold for what we call causality. The Government Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition, who released that statement, I think you're quoting from them, has 14 members. Around half of them are funded by companies like and including Coca-Cola. So the food industry has a near total grip on the messaging. And one of the things I'm trying to ask for is that our Government Scientific Advisory Committee should be independent of the industry that we know drives diet-related disease. Because the truth is, it doesn't actually enormously matter how you define the food when it comes to regulation. At the moment, the Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition thinks that salt, fat and sugar are the problems. That's fine. Ultra-processed food, one of the ways it harms the human body is very high in salt, fat and sugar, typically. We don't regulate salt, fat and sugar. We have a little bit of sugar tax on some soft drinks, but it's not widespread. There are no warnings on packets. If you think of the difference between harmful food and cigarettes, there's a gulf.
But ultra-processed food is also including things like, for example, sliced bread. you know, things like oat milk. How can those things be classed in the same category as, say, for example, chocolate? I mean, surely white bread has benefits as well.
Bread does have some benefits. It's a source of fibre. We eat much more of it. And when you eat, generally it's supermarket bread that will have additives like mono and diacetyl tartaric acid esters of mono and diglycerides of fatty acids. So that's called datim, most common emulsifier. Now we have evidence that that sort of scrubs out the gut. The bread is incredibly soft. It's almost invariably very high in sugar and very high in salt and extremely high in energy density. And it's the foundation of our British diet. So actually, whether we're talking about beans or fish fingers or supermarket bread, these are some of the healthiest things that we eat in the UK, and yet they are almost all very high in fat, very high in salt and very high in sugar.
But very briefly, we're running out of time. These foods are cheaper. You know,
They
so
are.
what do you say to someone who's saying, like, I can't afford to eat anything else?
We can't just copy-paste tobacco policy. We need to learn from tobacco policy. But the most important thing is you start with warning labels, and we have to drive down the price of real food and make it affordable and available for everyone.
OK, Chris, it's good to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed. And your book's out in paperback, is it not?
It is, indeed.
Thank you very much.